Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Hope everyone is well. 30th December 2025, another almost 365 days in the book. And for those of you that have actually joined live, one, thanks for the commitment. Two, I appreciate everything people just sort of tuning in every week over the past year. So hopefully we've been able to bring maybe not necessarily an education, but just a sort of a varied opinion on sort of where the market is, potentially contrarian. But I hope to continue to do that through into 2026. Now, apologies for how my screen looks at the moment. I was messing around with OBS an hour before I was due to go live, and I've gone and done something. So I've kind of messed that. I've lost connection to my Stream Deck, and so I've quickly just tried to sort out a couple of the screens. So I'll tidy up the rest in the new year. But what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're basically two things, really. We're going to have a 2025 year review, and we're going to ask that question of whether or not Bitcoin has actually failed in 2025, bearing in mind it was supposed to be the parabolic blow off top, alt season, etc., etc. So what can we really say about Bitcoin, price action point of view, development point of view, fundamentals point of view through the year 2025? Obviously, we'll then go very quickly into some sort of lower time frames, so we can kind of see where things are, but a bit of a weird time of year with the markets at the moment. And then I want to kind of touch on maybe some hope for 2026. So forgive me when I'm messing around and trying to click the mouse on the right button, but hopefully we will get there. Let's just go onto this screen and then at least know that one's out of the way. So I suppose the question really to ask is, has 2025 actually been a failure? We started the year with expectations incredibly high. ETFs were live. We had a very crypto-friendly, crypto-focused administration entering into the US. There were talks of rate cuts throughout the year. We were hoping that QT would end, QE would come in, stock markets to all-time high. And yet here we are at the end of the year. And actually, this feels like we've been beaten up through a bear market. It really does feel like 2025, despite some incredible price action, has left most people black and blue, potentially people out of pocket, and just generally the average retail investor in crypto, which is far fewer than we would have expected at this stage, I'm not saying giving up, but certainly struggling with a crypto focus, particularly when other asset classes have continued to do well throughout the year. So I suppose that's the question I want to try and explore as we review the year. What has happened for Bitcoin this year? And has Bitcoin failed, or have we actually failed and Bitcoin has delivered? And I think there's an interesting take on that. So no sort of hopium here, or no need to necessarily cause panic. It's a look back. It's done. What's done is done. All we can do is learn from it. And we'll go from there. If you have any comments or whatsoever, please drop them into the chat. And I'd love to get kind of your feedback. There's a little bit of a poll on there, whether or not we think Bitcoin has failed in 2025. I will come back onto that one a little bit later on. Charts you can see at the moment. I'm not going to discuss these right now. All I say is Bitcoin's going sideways and it just can't seem to lose 86,000, and BitTensor just continues to look like it's going to fall. So that's currently where we sit on those. I will come back a little bit later on and talk about those. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to throw up on the screen at the moment. So this is Bitcoin daily time frame. Let me just move it down so I can give you a little bit of a better look at the charts. Daily time frame, and this is just 365 candles, kind of giving us a view of the entire year. And the one thing that I kind of noticed when I was looking into researching tonight's call was, despite me saying that we were moving into an administration which is incredibly crypto friendly, talks about regulation, talks about crypto and Bitcoin strategic reserves, etc., I found that there was actually very few major crypto articles that controlled the price of Bitcoin. And actually, Bitcoin seemed to have been impacted by other global international news, whether that be economic or not. And so I'm not going to break it down month by month. This is what the news happened. We are going to go price action month by month. But we can kind of see, for me, there was three. I've thrown a fourth on there, but there were three major events in crypto through 2025. And if I just take you all the way back to January of 2025, we were riding the high of the Donald Trump win into the election. Bitcoin closed out 2024 with an all-time high in and around 108,000. Was a little bit of a pullback, but we moved into the inauguration, which I think it's either the 19th or the 20th of January, sometime around then. But we can actually see here that the day that Trump got sworn in, if that's the right term, marked it was at the time an all-time high local top for Bitcoin's price. And we actually went on a multi-month correction. Now, that was a bit of a buy the rumor, sell the news event. I covered last week as well that we did actually see a carry trade unwind with the Bank of Japan raising interest rates, and we saw that decline all the way through. Then we sort of got to a bottom around about February, and suddenly there was an announcement from the White House. And it was one of those in the classic announcements of stand by your beds. We've got an important message to announce in a few days' time about the Whitecoin's stance on on the crypto strategic reserve. The market pumped off the back of that. We had a movement from 78,000 all the way up to, well, it was actually the 50 EMA on the daily time frame, but 95,000, everyone getting incredibly excited. This was it. The Loomis Act, the Bitcoin bill was going to be announced. We're going to buy 1 million Bitcoin over the space of 5 years, and we're never going to sell it. That was what the rumor was. Of course, the announcement comes out. It's not even Bitcoins mentioned. There was wrapped Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of these other meme coins, effectively. They weren't really meme coins, but altcoins that were going to be included within this strategic reserve. And we suddenly saw that the market went, well, wait a second, we've been duped. Let's continue on the way back down. Then we get into kind of the bottom of the price action, but we still had one more move down to go. And that was after President Trump announced America's Liberation Day, I think he called it, which was basically the announcement of the world tariffs, initially aimed at Mexico and Canada. And it's all to do with, illegal immigrants coming into the country, the passage of drugs into the borders of the country, etc. And some incredibly strong tariffs are going to be there. The market's not just crypto, collapsed off the back of that. However, as became a running theme for about the next 6 months, the White House would effectively step back at the 11th hour, kind of put some delay in, the market would then rally and recover, off we'd go, he'd fall out of the country again, threaten tariffs, market would drop, etc., etc. So that kind of happened there, but we did find our bottom in April of 2025 for Bitcoin, getting into around about 74,000, which for those of you, and I know you don't need a history lesson, that was kind of when we ranged in March to August of 2024, we peaked at around about 74,000. So we kind of just retested that level, and we went on an epic run after that. I mean, pretty much April to October, the markets rallied, so did the stock markets, and we went from that 74,000 to the all-time high, 126,000. Interestingly enough, though, only 2 days later, we had a couple of events that happened on the 10th of October. There was a China announcement, tariff announcement again, 100% for China. I think that was an additional 100% actually on the 30% or whatever was already being threatened, which caused a massive sell-off, not just in crypto, but across the rest of the marketplace as well. Unfortunately for crypto, what it actually did is it caused this cascading liquidation of leverage trading. So we actually saw on Friday the 10th of October an incredible drop in Bitcoin's price, going from I think about 118,000 to 103,000. I think some exchanges went down to about 103,000 before we kind of started at that bottom. But actually, now that we look back on it 3 months later, we kind of see that that was just the start of an exit of liquidity out of the market. We didn't really recover from it. We sort of came back to that 50 EMA, fell away, found our current bottom of around about 80,000, and we've sort of moved sideways since. So for me, as a 5-minute review of sort of how Bitcoin has traversed 2025, and we've had some lows within it. I mean, we've been down to as low as 74,000, but as I said, we've been all the way up to 126,000. It's a $50,000 swing in the space of, I mean, it's actually only in the space of 6 months, but obviously 12 months for the whole year. Nearly a 50% swing. Unfortunately, we've then swung most of that all the way back down as well. And as I sort of said in that introduction, I think that's kind of where people are feeling at the moment. We have experienced the euphoria of multiple all-time highs through 2025, cementing really in most of our minds that actually this has still been a continuation of the bull market. But two things have kind of held us back, and we'll have a look at one of them in a moment, and that being altcoins haven't really done as well as anticipated. But secondly, has been this correction since the all-time high. And it's because the all-time high was formed from a lackluster move up. And I we're used to blow off tops. If we had gone through September and October to 150, 160, 170,000 and then corrected, everyone would have said 4-year cycles intact. We've had the blow off top. Now it's time for the bear market. But we haven't quite had that. We've had a lackluster move up, still making an all-time high. The timing of it, Q4 2025. We'll come back to that in a moment. But instead of sort of that euphoric kind of let's tell everybody we know to get into Bitcoin and create that extra liquidity for us, we've actually had a sort of a very weak move up to on low volume 126,000, and sort of then as it started to fall away, just people have kind of given up. They're sort of like, well, wait a second, when's this bull market going to come? And you can kind of see reflected in the price there. We've just made failed rally after failed rally. So that's kind of where that sits. No one's commented in there. No problem there. So I'll keep on flicking back to this chart, but I was sad and I created a little bit of a spreadsheet for us to just kind of see how Bitcoin has performed over the last 12 months. I think, I'll move it down when I need to move it down, but my head's in the way ever so slightly. Right, okay, so we'll kind of run a little bit through this. And we'll just keep on nipping back to the charts. But I think the real big picture, actually, I'm going to have to slide it down, is if we just look at the bottom one, the annual. So 2025 started, these are rounded to 100, so forgive me, 93,400. And if price were to close yesterday, that's when I took it from, that would be 90,200. So an actual down year in a year in which we're supposed to be below off top. Very surprising to actually see that we're going to end a monthly candle red. And when we talk about surprising, if we just go on to this, we throw out the 12 monthly candle. What have we done there? I'm gonna have to just clear. I could regret this, but anyway. So these are the yearly candles. And normally what we see is the red is for the bear market. Even when we have a blow off top, it's still a green year. And actually this, unless something happens in the next 28 hours in which we put $5,000 on, we are going to end this year as a red candle, which is a year earlier than we expected. Now, that could mean that 2026 is going to be a very good year for us. Or it could just mean that everything we've experienced previous cannot be relied on, and we just got to make our own way through it. But the point is, we are down on the year, which is not something people would have expected from Bitcoin. If Bitcoin's down, it's highly likely the vast majority of altcoins are down as well. But if we kind of have a look through the months, so January, 93,000 to 102,000, an almost 10% swing, but actually percentage move. But actually look at on columns G and H. Hopefully I've zoomed in enough that you can see this, but if anyone's on a mobile and struggling, I will read through them. Just look at how much we ranged and think about how much we ranged every month. So in the month of January, the highest we got to was 109,400 and the lowest was 89,000. So we had a $20,000 swing in the first month, which is unbelievable. It gets better into February. We started at 102. We dropped down to 84,000, 18% price decrease around about $18,000. But the swing from high to low of 102, 103,000 down to 78,000, it's nearly $25,000 again. $25,000 swing in 28 days. That's why this asset is incredibly volatile. Or the proof of it. March, actually one of the more stable months. Open and close within $2,000 of each other, 84 to 82,000. Still down $2,000 on the month, but the swings again, 95,000 was the highest we got to, all the way down to 77. Another 18 grand swing. We're probably talking about 22, 23% worth of swing in there. April, where we found our bottom, 82,000 is where we opened, 94 is where we closed. It was a 14% move on the month. And we ranged 95,900, that's 74,400, the low of the year, a $21,000 swing in the month. Just so I can save my breath on the swings, I have gone and run the average there. And the average for each month is $18,700. $18,700. I mean, we're talking almost 20% swings every single month. Now, we weren't leverage trading every single month, and we weren't riding the highs and the lows. We kind of only did towards the back end, and a lot of the time it was longs that we were looking for. But if you were a bit more of an active trader, there was a hell of an opportunity within Bitcoin, and maybe not as bigger swings in some of our altcoins, but if Bitcoin's got that volatility, we know that altcoins do as well. We kind of move into, I'm kind of feeling like I'm going to get a bit repetitive here. So I think what I'll do is I will just post this spreadsheet in Discord for everybody. But we kind of move into, we've just done Q1 and Q2. We move into Q3. So we're sort of looking in and around July. We've made that climb out from the tariff drop, as I've said. We've started to climb into July, opening around about 107,000, closing at a respectable 115,000 from only an 80% gain on the day. But this is where we start to put in some significant all-time highs. First all-time high of the year, major all-time high above 120,000. It was 123,200 was the high of the month, down to 105,000, still above that 100K level. And there's going to be a theme about that soon. August, 115 is where we opened, 108 is where we closed. We had a bit of a pullback, $7,000, but we got 124,000 as a new all-time high. We range load 107,000 for a $17,000 swing in the month. September, we're starting to make another low here. Although we open and close from 108,000 to 114, the swing was 118, so we didn't make a new all-time high. But we kind of found a base at 107,000 again. And then October, this is where it starts to get a bit interesting, because October was the month for us. Opened at 114,000. We closed at 110, just under. But we made the absolute all-time high, 126,200. And it was a $22,500 swing in the month there. That wasn't our biggest swing, though, because after setting those highs and still pulling back in October, November saw a pretty wild month, opening at 109,000, closing at 90,000, nearly the 18% drop on the month, about 20 grand. And we went from a range high of 111 all the way down to 80,000, a $30,000 swing on the month. And then December is not technically closed yet. But as I said, we pretty much opened at 90,000. Yesterday we were at 90,000. We're pretty much flat on the month, but we've seen highs as high as 94 and lows down to about 84. So around about 10 grand swing there. Lots to sort of kind of talk through, and sort of as we went through this chart, back on the daily, it's going to be zoomed out to anything. I'll try and bring this back. Bear with me a second. Where is 2025 there? So that's pretty much what we're talking about there. I mean, it's just a very big ranging pattern, and maybe the logarithmic chart doesn't necessarily do it justice. But I think the point that all of that just made running through that spreadsheet, and I was justified to run through it. It took a while. I tried to get ChatGPT to get me the information, but it just refused to do it unless it had an API, which was frustrating. So anyway, I just did it myself. Is even in the terms of price action, I don't think Bitcoin has failed at all. We have had repeated all-time highs throughout the year. Last one, okay, granted, was 3 months ago, but we've had those repeated all-time highs. We've actually made higher highs and higher lows throughout the year. 74,000 being the base of the year. We haven't broken that yet, so we continue to move that way. But most importantly, for those that do like to trade, perp traders, the volatility has been intense. There's been plenty of opportunity for people that understand how to trade, understand how to manage their own risks, to actually, even with low leverage, place trades and make some money from that in both directions. And so that's all that Bitcoin really is an instrument, an asset for people to speculate and make money. And I know there were people that were there that believe in the tech or the store of value for the future, and part of me is one of those as well. But ultimately, as we live here and now, it's an asset to make money like any other. So I think it has done very well. And we'll come back onto that feeling of sort of just negativity towards Bitcoin. But if we just go back to this spreadsheet here, I just uncover this black box. There's no earth-shattering statement in here. I just didn't want everyone looking at it whilst I was chatting through that. We have a look at some of the stats. And so, again, I counted these manually myself because I couldn't get ChatGPT to do it. But Bitcoin's price stats, so days over 100,000. Okay, for those of you that have been in since 2017, 2016, maybe, that 100,000, that's what our $1 million Bitcoin valuation kind of feels like. It just felt so out of reach at the time. And yet, here we are in 2025, and we spent 208 days above 100,000. We spent so long above 100,000, we just conditioned ourselves to looking at 6-digit Bitcoin. It was absolutely, that piece of magic internet money is obviously worth 100 grand. 208 days. I can't see how that's a failure. We go and have a look at, well, wait a second. How's it done versus the previous all-time high from 2021's bull run? Well, that was just under 70,000. Every single day of this year, we have been above that. 2022 obviously is a bear market. I didn't bother putting that in. 2023, the high in 2023 was 44,700. We have spent 365 days above that price as well. And I know a lot of you who watch this, whether now live or on the recording when we put it out, were around in 2023. So had we have just stuck to Bitcoin, even now, would have been twice of where we saw ourselves from an all-time high, even if you bought at the worst possible time in 2023. We never dipped below it this year. It's actually still twice as good a value. Then we look at 2024. 2024 is a bit of an interesting one because actually up until December, we would have had another 300 days of above all-time high. But because of what happened after the Trump election win, Bitcoin's price went to an all-time high in December of $108,287. I tried to get that one as exact as I could. And this year, 2025, we have spent 140 days and nearly 5 months, nearly 5 months of the year, nearly half of the year, above 108,000. So not just above 100,000, above 108. And again, you just think about that. And yes, okay, we're not above it right now. That's what stings. We're closing the year nearly 20 grand below that one. So I'm just looking at what Bitcoin's price is doing. But ultimately, those stats there actually say to us, Bitcoin has done pretty well this year. It has actually been relatively successful. In my mind, anyway. Maybe not in others. And unfortunately, the reason behind that is because I couldn't do it for Bitcoin if I didn't then do it for BitTensor. And I think this is maybe what is leaving a little bit of a sour taste in some people. And I've chosen BitTensor because that's what we're obsessed with. But read BitTensor and just think 99% of altcoins. And the altcoins have not done as well. If you think Bitcoin has struggled, the vast majority of altcoins have actually struggled even more. And again, yes, okay, from a news point of view, there has been two major news events for BitTensor through 2025. And if we just bring BitTensor up on the charts whilst we're doing this, let me just get the full year in. So I'll get rid of that. There we go. So this is BitTensor's chart on the year. And you know what? Kind of moved from left to right, a bit like what Bitcoin's did, except for it just seems to be the other way down. We seem to be trending generally down rather than generally up, which is nothing new. We've talked about that for quite a long time. But there were two major events that occurred in BitTensor this year, and that was, if I can find my pen, we had the announcement of Detail and Alpha subnets in and around about February of this year. And then early on this month, sometime in early December, we had its first halving event. So two major events. I know little things have happened in between in terms of registrations of subnets and everything else that may have gone on politically, etc. But they're the two real main events there. But other than that, actually, the price has been there. And it's been a very difficult year for those that have been in BitTensor, because 2024 did look better, This 2024, we set an all-time high in 2024. We got major listings across exchanges, and we saw price in and above $500-600 for solid months of the year into 2024. We now roll into 2025, And unfortunately, that is not the same picture. In fact, and I did it, I'm sorry. Well, no, we'll go through month by month first. I'm not going to go through it all again. I'll put the spreadsheet there. But basically, from an annual point of view, you can't see it. We started at 441. Price at the moment for BitTensor is 220. It was 222 earlier on when I did this. We're down 50% on the year. Bitcoin, we were down 3% of the year. BitTensor, 50% of the year. Okay, we're down nearly $220, a little bit more. And in terms of what it's ranged, the highest we got to this year, 588. That was back in January as well. But the lowest we got to in the tariff crash was 167. So again, a pretty big swing from that. We've had 7 negative months, percentage-wise, drops on the year. And unfortunately, they're rather large amounts. That's the problem. And when you look at the quarters, it might make it a bit easier. First quarter, we lost 50% of our value. So at a glance, second quarter, we gained 50% of our value. We must have made it all back, but unfortunately, that's not how it works. And I'll show you in the charts at the moment. Then we did a 10% and then a 27%. So didn't look too good. We throw that onto the monthly timeframes. Let's zoom in. And you can kind of see, So, it was quarterly, wasn't it? Apologies. Throw it onto the quarterly timeframes. 2025. So we had this candle here was the 50% drop that I talked about. Two zoomed in. And then we made that 50% back. But remember, it's only 50% of this original candle. That's how it works. So we didn't really get there. And then we continued with 2 more months down. So not particularly a pleasant viewing for those of us that are into BitTensor. And again, there are those that have taken opportunity to sidestep, to short, to long, whatever. There has been plenty of volatility there in which you've been able to at least, if not make some money from it, minimize the damage that a 50% drop in the last year has done. But I've done the same. I've gathered some stats for BitTensor, and this is where we stand. So set the all-time high, as I mentioned, March 27, 2024, $778. In the year 2025, we have spent 0 days above that level. Days above $500, 10. Days below $400, 288. So we've not even spent 2 weeks above 500, and we've spent the best part of an academic school year. I don't know what that is. 9 months below $400. I gave up, trying to be cocky and find whether it breached 300 days. But I imagine if I put 350, we probably would have found it was below that there. So not exactly the best view now. And yes, okay, I'm giving BitTensor a little bit of a kick in, but it's the one outside of Bitcoin. I know BitTensor's price better than I know Ethereum. So of course I'm going to have a look at it. But this tells a whole picture, doesn't it, really? And this doesn't mean that that Bitcoin has failed, but this is why we, as a retail investor in crypto, perhaps feel that 2025 was a difficult year. 2025 feels like it was a bearish year. 2025 has not been or lived up to the expectations that we set. And it's because vast majority of us are not in Bitcoin. We're in altcoins similar to BitTensor. And we maybe are not as we are more emotionally attached to BitTensor or whatever altcoin we're in, without it really having the sustained history and credibility that something like Bitcoin does. And so we might just be more susceptible to changing our ideas on what to do at BitTensor or whatever altcoin you're in. And we chop and change a little bit. And so we compound losses. We tell ourselves it's good for tax purposes or whatever. But ultimately it's dwindling away. And I get it. Next year, this thing flies. Doesn't matter, because just riding out the wave is all part of trading. I completely understand that. But this has a psychological impact on us now when we reflect at the end of 2025, because we don't know what's going to happen in 2026. But what's happened in 2025 is pretty clear. That's why, for the vast majority of us who play with altcoins, it feels like it's been a tough year. Now, I like to look at Bitcoin ETFs. And yet, okay, in the last 3 weeks, not looking like a great picture. Very limited buys from BlackRock, and a lot of sells from others. But I actually want to kind of have a look at this chart here, and I can't zoom it in, and you're just going to have to trust me with how this looks. But effectively, we go to where my arrow is at the moment. That's the 10th of Jan. That's pretty much the start of 2025. I'm going to move it away so you can kind of see just how the picture looks. But basically halfway across the horizontal axis is where the start of 2025 is, because these things came out at the beginning of 2024. So it makes sense. So what did we see? We saw a little bit of a rally into the inauguration. We saw the carry trade unwind. We also saw the tariff announcements. Brings it a pullback. And then we saw ETFs fly. And just remember that, the back of, strong buying power from the ETFs, Bitcoin has climbed from that 74,000 to 126,000. But what we can see right on the far edge at the moment is it's not flat anymore. It's actually in a bit of a downturn. Now, precious metals have been flying. Stock market's still been moving up. And these are investors, after all, that have no emotional tie to Bitcoin. They just have volatility. I want to see my returns. I'll happily move it out of this, put it into something else, and I will move it back if I need to. That's how they can play. So, but we are starting to see that they're still, it's not a falling off a cliff, but for the last few weeks, we are in a downturn for BitTensor purchases via the ETF, which is not panic stations, but it's just, we just should have a note of, and it just compounds to that feeling at the moment of, wait a second, we've relied on ETFs all the way through 2025 to just help prop up Bitcoin's price, keep it climbing north, and they're leaving us right now, and they're moving out. We haven't sold as quickly as they have. We're feeling like maybe we're a little bit lost there, and I get it. We're going to, trust me, we're going to talk about the positive sides of where we are psychologically and any sort of reversals, etc. in a moment, but just how it kind of leaves us and lets us feel, it's just hurting us at the end of the month. Oh, come on. I don't know why that's there. I need to move that over here. And this is kind of, I touched on this earlier on today in terms of psychology. Because 2025, if we look at some of these that I used to refer to quite a bit, my 4-year cycle charts, this was supposed to be the year. This was supposed to be the green year with alts, blow off top, and this is logarithmic. We put it on linear, and okay, it does look pretty good, that climb there. But we were expecting higher. That's the reality of it. Similar, sort of an easier one to look at is this one here. This one already is on the linear, but we were kind of expecting rally into this. But I do actually ask you, if you have a look at the blue candles, previously, the blue candles have always, or the blue shaded areas have always included the cycle peaks. And if you go back, and I did go back, I went through Discord, I had a look what I said on Discord, I had a look what other people said on Discord, Telegram, some Twitters, and you go back to 2024, even 2020, even 6 or 7 months ago, we were talking about Q4. Regardless of what happened, Q4 is when we want to start to take the money out. And something changed, for all of us, really. And we never really took that step that we all promised ourselves that we did. Now, had we have done that, things would have looked pretty good right now, because we put the all-time high. We did put that all-time high in Q4 of 2025. Now, if you had taken it out in Q4 2025, you'd have been very lucky to hit the all-time high, because it was only 10 days into Q4 when we set, well, actually it was 6 days, sorry, when we set the all-time high, 6th of October, 26,000, and it fell off pretty quickly. But had you have taken anything out over the next sort of, say, 4 weeks or so, you would have left Bitcoin at above 100,000. We're playing with it now at 88. Even if you got back in Q1, Q2 of 2026, you could have argued that was still a good move to have. Take your money out as per our plan in Q4 2025, sorry, put the money back in at some stage 9 to 12 months after you removed it into end of Q2, beginning of Q3, Q4 of 2026. That plan would have actually looked pretty good right now. But we didn't do that because, I go back to this chart. we didn't have that euphoric blow off top. And so because we didn't have that, we didn't feel we had actually not earned, in inverted commas, we hadn't got the reward that we felt we had earned. And we almost did get complacent. Because said, well, it's going to come. We're going to get that blow off top. And I go back to, had we have gone, you know, through September and October and hit 150,000, 170,000, rather than just making an all-time high by like $3,000 or $4,000, we would have said, that's it. That's the all-time high. That's the blow off top we were looking for. It's time to start thinking about getting out. And because we didn't have that, I think a lot of us have missed it, self included, missed getting out at an ideal opportunity. Now, it doesn't mean there isn't another opportunity to get out, and we'll have a look at that a little bit later on. But again, that adds now to how we feel at the end of this year, because we're actually moved from a point where we had a perfect plan. Well, we didn't know at the time it was a perfect plan, but had we executed it, it would have been pretty damn perfect. Take the money out, Q4 2025, look to re-enter sometime in Q 2026. We've not done that. We've missed that, and that potentially may cost us. And I would argue, even if you put money back in to 1st of Jan, so in 2 days' time, 2026, you're going to be in a far better position. So I think it's fair to say that, yes, we may make a new all-time high, but we ain't going to make it tomorrow. Very unlikely. We're very unlikely we'll make it tomorrow. So that plan of taking out Q4 2024 was absolutely the right thing we should have done, and we didn't. So now we're hoping that everything's moving up to the right. And that's the word now, isn't it? We don't have a plan anymore. We have a hope that we'll get another opportunity to get out. Will we learn our lessons if we do get our wish? We'll have to wait and see. I'd like to say yes, but we're all human. So who knows where that one goes. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. I'm not going to go through everything on it, but there were some altcoins that actually did okay. And I'll use the next couple of charts to have a look at that. But this is just total 2 at the moment. Sorry, this one should have been a little bit later, but it's on the screen. I'll come back to some of the alts that have had done all right in 2025. So again, just adding to that feeling of why we potentially feel down through 2025. And I appreciate, I'm sorry that this is a bit of doom and gloom, but it's the reality of where we find ourselves. Total 2, alts. They started the year. Oh, it's not even everything on the screen. That's because this is, no, I'll do it. Sorry. Every yellow line you'll see is that where it opened at the beginning of the year, instead of me zooming all the way back and trying to find it. But we are down 15% from where we were at the start of the year. So 3% for Bitcoin, 15% for everything outside of Bitcoin as a collective. ETH not done as badly, actually. I mean, it's had some huge drops, but the summer rally for Ethereum really helped bring this back. So it's actually only 5.5% down, still more than what Bitcoin was. And that then makes sense because Bitcoin's dominance is up 2.5% on the year. Had some good swings about it, but still ended up on the year. So those of you that hold predominantly Bitcoin probably done okay. But this is where the kicker really kicks in, because Bitcoin and crypto is supposed to be linked to the stock markets, aren't they? Well, NASDAQ up 20% on the year. S&P 500, 17.5% on the year. Gold up 66% on the year. Silver up 165% on the year. The rest of the precious metals doing exactly the same. So it does feel like, well, wait a second. You know, we were told crypto's the one that's going to be how you can increase your portfolio in the shortest period of time. And everything else seems to have outperformed it this year. Now, last week I went through, these were a bit of leading because it doesn't take into account the prior 2 years in which Bitcoin has absolutely destroyed every single one of the ones that I've just shown you there. So, you know, please take this chart here with a pinch of salt. But altcoins that have done okay, and I'll start with Zcash because some of us have traded that one. What's going on here? Why is that down here? That should be here. So Zcash started the year at $62. It dropped at times down to $20. We're now at over 530. It's had a high of 780. It's up to its current price now from the year 750%. I didn't bring it up, or I haven't saved it. Monero, another privacy token, exactly the same. For those in the group that have been trading Pippin, it hasn't. Sorry, I should have saved that. It started at $13. So this was drawn on previously, and at the moment it's still 200% up on where it was from the start of the year. But assuming you didn't buy it when it launched and you got it, when people were looking at memes in and around here, we're talking 1 cent, 2 cents, 5 cents kind of region, now up at 40 cents, almost a 20x on where you could have got in. There were some incredible opportunities out there for people. Some people took them in the group, some people played with memes and did well, some people got burnt with memes. I'm kind of like, I had the SPX, which I did well because I got it in 2024, but I didn't play it very well to get out, if I'm being honest. To say, it's not, this chart isn't even it, but to say that when you get in here around about 15 cents, you see it ride up, come back down, and then do this, and then you get out sort of like this level here. You've done all right with it, 4 or 5x, but you probably could have got out at 15x at some stage. So a little bit of a tough one there, but I know some people in the group have done very well trading memes. So well done to you for doing it. I lost my train of thought there. Someone said XRP. XRP had done well. And I don't think it has. This article here talks about XRP. Altcoins lagged Bitcoin in 2012, but XRP, Zcash, and Algorand outperformed. But I actually look. So it's down 10% on the year, which obviously a greater percentage drop than Bitcoin. But if you look at it, it's had some big moves, but it has actually massively corrected. And I think what people forget is that we've been at around about $2 for 12 months now. You have to go back 14 months. This is the move that people are like, oh yeah, it's absolutely flown, but it's technically 2024. This is Trump. This epitomized the Trump rally. Positive news off the SEC, and we've had some more news from the SEC with XRP throughout the year, but it's effectively giving it all back. But it's had a good 14 months. It's not had a good 12 months. So don't just read headlines. They're not always correct. The fear and greed. I promise you there's some positivity coming. This is over 12 months here, and we can see, bull market, we have spent the vast majority of our year, I can't calculate it, I'd have to count them all, but over 50% of our year, in the fear section, less than 50%. We've actually spent, this is the longest sustained period of extreme fear ever experienced in crypto. That's including bear markets. Now, I stand by this. I still believe that is a positive. I still believe you cannot be this fearful for this long without some form of a rally. I genuinely believe that. And I might too be suffering from a bit of hope on that. But I genuinely believe that you can't spend the longest time ever in extreme fear without some sort of relief. And alt seasons. I mean, again, 12 months here, the vast majority of the time has been in Bitcoin, a Bitcoin season. We've spent a bit of time neutral. We spent, I think, about 6 months solidly in Bitcoin seasons, a couple of months just outside of that, a little bit of neutrality, and we spent 3 weeks of the year in an alt season, and it's tough. That's tough when that happens. So that's kind of what is compounding a lot of the issues that we find ourselves in. I'll come back to this chart in a second. So where do we kind of find ourselves? 2025, I still think is one for the books. I actually think 2025, we should respect it for what it was, in that we set a brand new all-time high. We spent over 6 months of the year above 100,000. We spent nearly 6 months of the year above $108,000. We spent so long above them that we just got used to those figures. They don't even seem to be that concerning anymore. Not concerning, but that exciting anymore, because we've been above them. Yes, okay, we've had some swings within this, but even in some serious pullbacks. Bitcoin has, this is monthly time frame you're looking at the moment. We have yet to make a lower low or a lower high. So we haven't actually broken the trend yet. And that's the big message, isn't it? Despite what I say about, well, I've lost it now. Not that one either. Where we may sit on this and which side have we blown up or not. We don't know yet. And we could rally over the next 4 or 5 weeks. We could break through that 50 EMA, I'm going to show you in a moment, break through 100K, break through the previous all-time high, move ourselves up to 130,000. We're going to forget all about this. We're going to start talking about euphoria, blow off tops, and I'll be even laughing at myself for it. But we have to wait for that. But also, we can't just wave the white flag and call a bear market yet. How can you when you look at this and say we're still in an uptrend? And okay, maybe the monthly is a bit too hard to look at it, but a close below 82,000 monthly time frame, that's probably where we're looking to say, okay, what next? But just take a look at this chart. Monthly time frame, as I said, unless something drastic happens in the next 28 hours, we are going to do 3 monthly red candles in a row. We don't normally do that. Go back. We haven't done that in the bull run. We've had a couple of occasions where we've had 2 down here and down here. Let's look at the bear market. So we've had 2, and then we get our first 3 months, 3 monthly reds in a bear market. From the blow off top, 3 monthly reds. Okay. From the April 2021, all we got was 3 monthly reds. 3 monthly reds. Now, the only time we've got more than 3 monthly reds, some of you probably weren't even in the market in 2018. 3 monthly reds, boom, capitulation down to 3,000. We actually ended up with 6 monthly reds there. So that is the record. So, it can happen. But generally, after 3, we get relief. Now, it doesn't mean we turn around. We get relief. And so I still think we are owed, even if this is a bear market, even if we have had the all-time high. I believe, and I'm going to sound like Ben Cohen and a few others that maybe suggest that Bob Lucas and a few others that are out there that think that potentially the top is in. But generally, every single bear market, or the start blow off top bear market, we start to fall and then we have a rally to, we hit, some people call it the 21-week moving average, the 50-day moving average, whatever you want to look at. We normally have some sort of sustained value. I like to suggest at the moment our battleground, taking off the monthly, is going to be the weekly. 50 weekly moving average. But we'll throw on the 20 as well, 21. I mean, they're getting close to each other. That, I think we will, well, we should, and I'll show you with previous ones, have a move there. And I've been saying this for a while. Our next battleground for me is when we see a rally. And okay, we may not get that high, but how we react on this next rally is going to tell me everything. Okay. So we get through it. Okay. We stay in. Doesn't mean I'm full bull yet. We get through 108. I stay in. We fail to make an all-time high and I'm gone. I won't be gone at 126,000 because it's too soon, but we get back down to 118. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to be like, I've been burnt there. We failed to make it. The relief rally hasn't worked. And off we go. And we'll have a look at how we can re-enter. But we need that relief rally. And if we go and have a look at other bear markets, let's get rid of this. What's just happened there? Sorry. There we go. Let's just clear all this. It's just annoying me at the moment. Just look. Look what happened. So 2021. We've come down, come back to the 50 or the 20 EMA, 21 EMA, which I want to have a look at. And then we rejected. I mean, that's what we're missing. That's what we're missing at the moment. And maybe we'll do what happened in the summer of 2021. We come down, we test it, and we move through. Maybe that is what we happen. We go back to 2018, bear market. Similar kind of thing. Came back down, rejecting, came down, rejected, came down, rejected, and we did that. But we had those rallies into it, and they were just failed rallies that we turned around from. That is what I'm expecting Bitcoin to do. And even when you look at 2019, sort of a half rally up here, came back down, rejected. Okay, then we had a interesting time in 2020 before we turned it all around. And had that not have happened, maybe we would have continued, but it unfortunately did. And so I still expect that to happen. I do, that is for me, goes back with the complacency side of things, or it goes back from thrill to euphoria. But we need that, okay? It doesn't feel natural for this to just continue down, especially where the fear and greed is, especially when I can now move soap, especially when we've got the RSI, as low as it is at the moment. I mean, we got down to as low as 35. We talked about that being sort of comparable to lows in the bear market, the deep bear market, 2022. We're there, fear and greed as low as it currently is. I don't think it's that out of the woods for a 15% rise to test those levels. I actually think we should get past those. I think the absolute way to really mess with retail is to fly through 100,000, get to the 105, 108,000, really trap people into thinking we're going again and it rolling over there. That's what I think would be how market makers would play that. So I still have to stand by that one. It's a bridge I'll die on, and I have not left the markets, mainly because I'm hoping that that's what happens. No, I believe that needs to happen to confirm which direction we're going in. And because I didn't get an opportunity, that's not true. I had an opportunity, I didn't take it, to get out earlier. I'm going to wait. I'm not going to just go, right, well, we've been flat here for a while, I'll wait. If we drop, I'll get out, of course. But until then, I'm going to stick with it. Right, that being said, let's just get onto a bit of a lower time frame. 10 minutes or so, we'll wrap this one up. So this is what we see, 12-hour time frame at the moment. We've got some liquidity levels. We've still not been able to drop down into that big liquidity level at 82,000, 24,000. And we've got that other level, I've not marked it up, 91 to 92, which we've tried to get towards, but we haven't. I haven't shrunk that box. That's just where it kind of sits. And you can actually see that fib level, 1.414, about 88,400 on the 12-hour time frame, really acting as strong resistance at the moment. There's an argument to be said that it has been significantly smothered, and we have moved out, quite a way to the right. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I'm going to draw on this. It's going to look messy because I'll change it to white or something. But red, it stands out a little bit better. We've continued to make higher highs as we've gone through. We were making higher lows. We were making higher highs. We haven't done that in a while, but we just need to have one move up. And if we can, we've got to break into 95,000. When we do that, we can start to have a conversation about breaking out of that. But until we lose that trend line, which at the moment I suppose currently sits at around about 87,000, we're okay. I do worry, and I'm sorry to have to go, have a look back at April. If we're going to climb out of this, just look what happened in April. We retested the low and then we reversed out of this. We've kind of gone flat. Part of me really thinks that move down into there and then a sharp move out is I'm not saying a probable way of doing it, but people are trying to draw parallels to this. Well, this had another move down, a very fast one, scared the living daylights out of everybody, and then it climbs up. And so because of that, we're going to have to hold our horses all the way down to 80,000, maybe 81,000, till we kind of know where that's going. We have a look, Bitcoin daily time frame, a few other indicators on here at the moment. I've not changed that trend line, but you can see we've now snaked out to the right of it, and we're sort of koboing off it, but we're using it as support rather than resistance. The 10, the 20 are just running parallel with each other right now. That's how stagnant price has been. And we've not really tested the 50 EMA for some time. It's only at 92,000, so it's not far away from where we currently are. But I'd like to think a move up to there. I mean, I've been talking about this for a while. A retest of that, I expect 200 EMA, around about 100,000. That's where I'm really thinking. We talked about that. The 50 EMA is around about 98. We've got some liquidity areas around there. I kind of feel we get to there, we're going to be hitting that 200 EMA for a bit of a retest, should we make it. In terms of the RSI, I've left this on just to try and get a gauge of sentiment, really. We are sort of climbing out. There's no real divergence of such to have a look at right now. Just something to monitor, but we're kind of like 50-50 territory on the daily time frame. We drop down onto the 4 hour. I might get rid of this yellow line just for now. And then I'll zoom everything in so we can see. And I think there's a bit of an odd pattern coming along here. Because you can go back pretty much the entire month. And all we've got, right, I mean, we can start here then. Snap down, immediately reversed and bought back up. Climbs up, snaps down, bought back up, snaps down, bought back up, snaps down, bought back up, snaps down. Didn't get bought back up there, but price gets snapped back down, recovered, the vectors snap back down, recovered, up, recovered, or retraced. It's very snappy movement, as in we have a sharp move up, it is immediately recovered, and then we range for a little bit. And it does feel a bit artificial. You take into account last 2 weeks, week and a half, been a bit of weird trading kind of time. But it does feel like we're being conditioned for something. I'm not sure what that is right now. But generally, any decent move up, unfortunately, gets recovered. And we kind of see the moves up at the moment have been hitting the 200 EMA on the 4 hour candles before coming back down. So I don't know, just odd. I think that's the word. It looks worse on the hourly. You really kind of see it. And you kind of see with the RSI. It's just going top to bottoms within these strong moves up. But they're all there. So difficult behavior. If you're someone that's a bit of a chart slave and you're looking at it all the time, you can panic into doing things, such strong movements. And actually, maybe just looking at the chart once or twice a day is all you really need to do, because you've got to be unlucky to catch some of those. But that's kind of where it sits in the hourly. And I don't have too much to say about it. One, we've probably only got half a day's worth of trading today. We'll have any on Thursday, maybe very little again on Friday. So not really too much to have a look at. And yeah, you can see how low it's been. Not really much trading activity going on at all. BitTensor, I do think BitTensor's picture is not as good. I will be honest there. I will stand by the fact we haven't touched the 50 EMA for a while, so maybe there's an opportunity to get through there. But again, I've been saying that for 2 weeks now, and it's not quite happened that way. This random line that I drew has actually proven to be pretty good support at the moment, but we are getting squeezed, so just got to be careful on that one. If I took it in isolation, I'd be more worried about this than I am Bitcoin, just because I suppose actually that's not fair. It's making a rounding bottom. I was going to say it's making sort of lower lows, but this time it hasn't yet. So that's not fair. RSI is very oversold. And it just has been since November. And we had such a strong month in October. You think about it, it's not surprising, but that's just come back down. And I know people will say it's tying to halving and whatever else. That's fine. I'm not following that, so I'm not too sure. But I just don't like the look of it. That's my honest opinion with where it sits at the moment. 4 hour for that. The 50 EMA. Look, it's just controlling us. It is. So we're gonna have to get above the cloud, because we actually got above it and immediately lost it. If we get above this 224, it's only $4, and stay above it for a couple of 4 hour candles, actually start to prove it. But just have not been able to break it for the last few days. And it has been controlling as the 50 EMA for some time. I will have a look at Ethereum. Again, just moving sideways. 4 hour time frame. There's snaps up and snaps back down. There's still quite a bit of vectors between 3,000 to 3,250. We just haven't been able to get past this 200 EMA to really challenge them at the moment. So I'm not really confident in where that sits as well, and that's just honestly where it is. I think by now I'm Bitcoin will tell us which way we're going to go, except for the odd deviation from that. Whatever Bitcoin does, the rest of us will ultimately follow. The rest of the markets kind of limited movement on the day. TAUX is down quite a bit, but the rest of them pretty much there or thereabouts where they opened at, and everything else kind of seems the same. I don't have any chance in the next bit, so I'll just put on the main screen and we'll just talk about 2026. I think that's a lot of not necessarily negativity. I do think 2025 has been a good year for Bitcoin. I think it's been difficult for us in certain aspects, and half of my portfolio and my business portfolio feels much better off than my altcoin portfolio. And the trading side has helped, side steps have helped, but it's still not being good. That's the reality of it. But ultimately, that's the risk we take, and you've just got to really buy into it. And if you're not as invested in some of these altcoins, then maybe this is just a bit of a wake-up call that actually, even after such a good year for Bitcoin, some of those altcoins haven't done. Now, look, they're altcoins. They could be flavor of the month next month, like BitSensor was in October when everything else was dropping, and suddenly turn around. But what do we have to look forward to for 2026? Well, start off, it's a brand new year, brand new opportunity for us to just try and take advantage, try and make some sort of positive gains. Doesn't have to be in your portfolio every single day of the year, and just be amazed at how different that can be by the end of the year. We know quantitative tightening's ended. Okay, so I'm not saying quantitative easing has started. There are some stealth elements that are going in, but we know that liquidity is being added to the market. Now, we also know that it is very unlikely that Chairman Powell, Jerome Powell, will still be the chairman of the Fed in 2026. I don't know how long it'll take, but he'll likely be replaced. Looks like he's going to be replaced by someone who's very favorable for Trump. And I don't want to play devil's advocate, but it is like 2 years. Next year will be, I don't know what they call it, midterms. It'll be his midterm. So by November, he needs to be looking very strong. He needs the economy to turn around. He needs those interest rates to drive back down. So we could well see that movement down. And whether or not you are 5-year cycle or you are a 4-year cycle type of person, 5-year cycle, the top's not being in 2026. It's going to be the year that we find it. But actually, for those of you that 4-year cycles, 2026 is actually the best year for you. And I mean that. I genuinely mean that. If we found the top, if for whatever reason we have to leave the market, 2026 will mean we should find a bottom. And then we have an opportunity to get in. You won't catch the very bottom of it. So just get to a level that you think you're happy with getting in, and you can build from there. And it's all about just starting that again. And if you're like me, you're probably never going to leave the industry, the sector, whatever. You just try and repeat those patterns. And so if you're a 5-year guy, or you just don't believe that the top is in yet, 2026 already looking good for you, because you've rode it down to where we are at the moment. We're on the cusp of finding a rally, and off we go. And I'll see you north for 130,000. If, however, you're a bear market kind of person, you think, I've missed the top, it's happened, I'm just going to wait for the next cycle and I want to position myself. Well, the only time you can do that with any meaningful position is during a bear market. It's time to just manage your portfolio as it currently stands, finding that entry in 2026. It's going to be the one that I talk about now. I mean, I've been in the market since 2017, never really left it. And yet I talk to people about my entry in 2022 more than I talk about buying Bitcoin at 5,000, 7,000 in 2020. It's a strange kind of thing, but that's kind of the cycle that we find ourselves in. And you'll be able to go, right, well, I learned a lot in 2024, 2025. I found my bottom in 2026. And in 2027 and 8, we can build on through that one. So I genuinely believe there is a lot to be looking forward to next year, regardless of which side of the cycles you want to find yourselves on. I will just say that, just take take any information that you find, whether it's about your beloved altcoins, whether it's about Bitcoin or the market in general, and just run it through a bit of a filter of, is that just what I want to hear? Or is there some truth to what I'm being told there? And if you just have that, it doesn't mean you need to act on it. It just means that you can just apply a bit of rational thought, particularly when things are going well. And even I'm a bit of a sucker for that. We talked about the BitSensor rally to 530. If it breaks below 445, I'm going to get out. I can get out for $100 after that. You just got to carry it away with it. So, we all keep on learning from it. We all try and find a better side to it. But I think I've rabbited on for enough time. I just want to say thank you for everything for 2025. I think it's been a good year. I genuinely don't believe Bitcoin has been a failure. I think we have failed Bitcoin. We have made plans. We didn't stick to them. It gave us an opportunity, and we can be better. We can do better than that just by it's not even taking risks. It's just listening to what we actually tell ourselves that we should do. I look forward to chatting to everybody in 2026. I'm going to try and I will definitely be more regular with the charting ones on Fridays. Try and find maybe another day that works for people through 2026. But I think there's some brilliant opportunities ahead for us all. So Enjoy the rest of your year. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a good evening for those of you who are going to celebrate tomorrow. For those of you who just want to watch it in telly and have a glass of wine or whatever it is, enjoy that as well. And yeah, I will see you in 2026. Good evening now. Cheers now.